and stuff you don't. It's the Ben and Bren Show.
So I heard about the Beauty Pass for the first time the other day, and this is when celebrities can go through a movie that's already fucking done and be like, I don't like the way I look in that shot. But it's like,
I see.
And they get the right, they reserve the right to do that in their contract or whatever. But I just found that to be so interesting because I feel like that's the antithesis of what we should be doing. Particularly in film. It's like, that's great. You don't look good. That's wonderful.
Well, I feel like for the last decade or more since Instagram came out, we've gotten used to how we look under a filter.
No, it's gross.
So
yeah, we need to change that. Immediately. I have a daughter. Like, no.
I used to see, like, now you can like totally point out the people that like use the Facetune on their face. Like, I just don't fuck with it anymore. I do the one swipe on the Instagram story, like it goes from normal to then like what's
Paris.
But yeah, Paris looks great.
Yeah.
It's not too overdone, you know.
No, it's like just a little
just
swipe
of
Vaseline on the lens.
Yeah, it's a little.
Like, give me that
Just
little,
a
like,
little Vaseline.
Just give me a little shellac. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I don't do that. And I also like, I feel like, you know, but that's the thing. It's like, we have to do that, right? Because we have terrible lighting. But when you have good lighting, you don't have to do that at all.
You don't have to. Yeah.
But also, like, who the fuck cares? I honestly, like, that was one of the things that I loved about Billie Eilish several years ago when she was, like, coming out and she had, like, pimples everywhere and just straight showcasing it on Instagram. I was like, this is healthy as fuck.
Right.
For people to see. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
For sure.
Because it makes you feel, even as, like, a woman with a child, I was just like, oh, yeah, me too. You know, you feel included. You feel like part of something bigger. And it's almost like, you know, those tabloid things, stars, they're just like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, people consume that for the wrong reasons, but I think it's important, you know,
for
particularly
sure.
for the young women.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to keep everything more human than not.
I don't know what it's like to have acne because I took Accutane as a kid. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a serious drug for the people. I used to have to, you had to like sign, like your parents have to like sign a waiver and everything. And then like when you poke out the pills on the packet, there's like a pregnant lady with a X through it because you'll literally 100% have
kill your baby.
Deformities in your baby. Yeah.
Holy shit. So
It's
wait,
serious.
did you take that in response to starting to have some eruptions?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like it wasn't bad, but I was just this little gay boy that was just like, I don't want anything.
Yeah, I need to be
thanks.
pristine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the thing. Is like you kind of see these pimples and they were like a little bit sexy on her.
Yeah.
Is that fucked up to say? But like they were.
Yeah.
And I actually remember like the first. Okay, now we're just like having the sex conversation.
That's going to be a lot of this podcast.
The first time I was ever turned on, I remember like in my whole entire life, I must have been like 11. I was small.
Yeah.
And I was at the Empire State Building. I grew up in New York City. I don't know why the fuck I was at the Empire State Building doing a touristy thing. Probably somebody was in from town. And I saw this boy who must have been like 12 or 13, like popping a pimple in his reflection.
And you were horny.
And I was horny. But wait, like, okay, so like I had like, you know, attractions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this was the first time my body physically responded to somebody.
Right.
God. And yeah, so pimples, they're hot, guys.
Are you sure it wasn't the Empire State Building that was turning you on?
Oh, because it's very erect. It's a very erect building. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna go where that's where romance happens, but no, it's probably not. We're inside. We're already inside. So.
My girl likes to pop my pimples.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I watch videos. I watch people pop an assist on a cow. Just see
that's
that
like
fucking
where I'm
shit
like, that's
out.
a little.
I did
That's
pop
a little
assist
much
on a
for
dog.
me.
Did
But
you?
yeah, she recently passed, Rick.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah.
But not from the cyst.
Not from
just,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I alleviated some major discomfort, I think.
God, you know, it's so fascinating. It's so disgusting.
It's gross. But when you're doing it, it's less gross than if you're watching it, I think.
Right.
Because you have your medical, like...
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it seems like you're also a home doctor.
I am.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Surgeries.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got a skin tag? I can take care of that.
I cut one of my dog, Rick's, he had like this little skin tag thing. I just cut it off one day with fingernail clippers.
Why not?
Nice.
You know, you can just tie a dental floss around that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
That was our cold open, you guys. Gross.
it's great.
No, that's we're starting off
Benny,
right.
you want to introduce our friend that we have today?
We have Alana Da Fonseca, the one and only legend, songwriter, producer, artist, period. I mean, artist in the sense of you are an artist.
I'll take it.
You are a general, true artist.
Thank you.
And we are really grateful and excited for you to be here. And we're going to get some really cool stories and lots of insight, I think from you. And this is the Ben and Bren Show.
The Ben and Bren Show.
Welcome.
Cute.
And
Welcome.
nobody ever really calls me Bren. A few people call me Bren or B, but do people call you Ben?
My dad always calls me Ben.
We just decided at this title because it like kind of sounds like a show title, you know.
Yeah.
Hi, Ben and Bren. I like
Ben and
it.
Bren.
Yeah, we want to get to know you. We want everybody to get to know you. And so I think to start off, growing up in New York, let's hear about that. And your dad is Duduka Da Fonseca, the legendary Brazilian jazz drummer.
He sure is.
And so to that end, what was that environment like growing up, and how did that influence you?
Yeah. So okay, that's such a question.
I know it's a big one.
No, I mean, because here's the thing. I try to sort of describe when you don't know anything different, you don't know anything different, right? So I grew up in this jazz house, you know, and jazz usually doesn't make much money. So we were like, you know, a very normal ass family in a tiny ass apartment in Greenwich Village, New York City. And I grew up, I mean, from the time I was in the womb, I was in the clubs. Hello, not that kind of club. In the jazz clubs, you know, I was like rocking out. My mom says I was always like super kicking to the jazz tunes, which is actually really funny because to this day, if I'm surrounded by really good jazz, now this doesn't happen with bad jazz, just really good jazz puts me to sleep. But so it's actually not a bad thing. It's not because it's boring. It's because like that's
Comforting.
yeah, because it's my womb music, you know. So so I grew up going to all of my dad's shows. At like, you know, the small clubs, the big little stuff, big stuff. And not only was my dad a drummer, but all of my like uncle figures are a guitar player. Romero Lubambo was like one of my dad's besties, and he's like one of the top Brazilian jazz guitar players ever. And they had a trio. My dad toured with Astrid Gilberto, who sang Girl from Ipanema. She was the one who made that famous. And then, like, you know, cut to 7 years old, my dad remarries my stepmother, who sang in Tom Jobim's band. So I grew up also around his piano.
Wow.
Just like watching. I remember one time he was like writing something in English, and he asked me, "Oh, how do you pronounce this word? Is it paradise or paradise?" And I was like, "Oh, it's paradise." And he was like, "I think you can do it either way, and I'm going to go with paradise." I was like, "Okay, great."
Just a little
Good talk.
rewrite the language.
But yeah, so that was my life. And my dad, well, actually my godfather was also this crazy percussionist. Did I ever show you his stuff, by the way? No.
I don't think so.
Nana Vasconcelos. I kind of like, it's like shitty to describe it this way, but I would say he's kind of like, if like Bobby McFerrin and Jimi Hendrix had a love child that did like Afro-Brazilian percussion and vocals.
Sick.
That would be him. I'll show you some shit. You're going to be like, oh my God. Anyway, so
Amazing.
I also grew up singing in his chorus. He had a chorus of like 8 girls or something like that. And I always just sang with him. That was always just what we did. You know, it was actually really funny because I went to school for music. I went to Purchase for music production. And I remember, like, I didn't know until that point when I was in school studying music that everybody couldn't just harmonize. And I was like, okay. So I found these 2 girls that were in the songwriting program, and I was like, I'm going to do the lead. You do the 5, you do the 3, let's go. And they couldn't do it. They didn't know what they were doing. And I was like, wait, no, 3, 5, go. It was weird because they were amazing singers and songwriters. Amazing. But they had no idea how to just like impromptu harmonize. And I was like, wait, what's going on? Because I was really confused.
The three.
Three.
Yeah.
Okay. No, because what had happened was this, and I didn't know this was happening. Okay. But growing up, my best friends were, when I was 2, Jean Schofield, who's John Schofield's daughter. So there you go. It's just like music geniuses in her brain. She also works in music now. You guys just did a little
Getting
hi,
breakfast.
how are you?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
on
it.
Thursday.
And she played bass in a band, and we were writing songs together when we were 3 years old. So like,
Amazing.
when people are like, I just didn't know that people didn't do that, because that's what I always did. And then my bestie in school was this girl, Serena Jones, whose dad is Rodney Jones, who's like an incredible guitar player, played on daytime TV, no, those are called talk shows. Toured with several artists, does his own music. He's like kind of like jazz, new age, like, stuff. Also brilliant guitar player. He actually, weird story, was Dr. Luke's guitar teacher.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
I hear
Yeah.
he was a controversial figure.
He's a little bit controversial, but we can get into that later. I worked with him. And
Get some tea.
Yeah.
and did other things. And
Yeah.
I
Ooh.
think he's wonderful. But anyway,
Yeah.
but you know, whatever. So then my best friend from camp, and these 3 people are still my best friends, okay? And they're all amazing, and we all still really get along and love each other. We're family. But my third one is Rebecca Naomi Jones, who is a Broadway icon, and her dad was Eddie Jones, who was like the Cadillac's MD, and we would just sit around his piano singing, harmonizing, creating songs, like doing that. So that was what I grew up in, and my chorus in school was also like really talented. I don't know. I just didn't know people didn't know how to music.
Yeah.
So
Just the New York way of
yeah.
life.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, so I got to college and I was really confused. And
Everybody had to catch up.
I was like, oh, I don't know if they caught up. But what it is anyway, I frequently describe one of my collaborators. I don't know if you guys know Emily Bear, but she's this like brilliant.
Oh, yeah. She did the
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton. Yeah. That's how. Yeah.
So she has been like writing songs since she was 4 years old, and good ones, like not shitty. And we met when she was 9, and we wrote together. And she went on to be mentored by Quincy Jones, has toured the world, won a Grammy for 2 years ago, I think, for Bridgerton. She's brilliant. And I always describe her as music being her first language, because she speaks with a fluency. And when I say speaks, I mean plays and creates with the fluency that, a normal person would have just creating a sentence. Like, oh, I speak. Like, oh, I play. It's the same thing. There's no difference there. And I think it's because she was exposed so young. She's 2 years old learning how to play the piano. And had the kind of support that she needed to sort of cultivate those skills, that she just knows how it goes. And I feel like a lot of people who I speak to who grew up that way, it's the same thing. You just know how it goes because it goes that way. And then I think as you train and your musical intellect takes over, you can sort of, it goes like this, but let me do something less obvious. Let me create in this other way. So yeah. Have no idea what I was talking about before that because I have ADD.
That's what this podcast is going to be.
That's
beauty
perfect.
of.
That's actually perfect for us.
Yeah.
I have something to add to that, or
Tell me.
to. I saw a video. I can't remember who was saying this the other day, but that was saying that almost like music theory in some ways limits.
Oh my God. Was it the little girl playing the piano?
No, it was. I think it was a guy, an older guy, maybe, that was talking about it. But it was
Was
just
this the Wayne Krantz video?
maybe, I don't even remember. I just came across, somebody had posted it, and I was like, interesting. Made me feel a little bit better about some of my holes in my music theory, which I went to school for classical.
That's where
piano.
we met. Was in music school in Memphis.
But there's a lot of jazz knowledge that I wish I had, or wish I was
Oh my
able
God.
to go back and comb
Access,
through,
yeah.
because I was just in the pages, just learning the music. I'm a sight reader. I can play my instrument well, but then like some of those holes that I have where you would learn, if going through a jazz program or something, aren't as I get it. I can speak the language, but it's also just like not always under my fingers, tips or whatever. So I wonder your thoughts on that. Like is having an abundance of that knowledge limiting, do you think, sometimes to artistry?
Okay.
The ideas.
Really, really good question. I think it's so complicated to answer that properly.
Sure.
Because you're then starting to qualify, like you're starting to like add a value assessment to different types of music, and really it's like what moves you, right? So am I moved by Baroque classical music? Sometimes. Am I moved by bebop? Sometimes. But generally those forms of music I feel like have more targeted audiences. Like bebop, for example, is like musicians' music. But it's not just regular musicians. It's people who understand that and are doing that.
Yep.
And I feel like that can almost be said about any style of music, right? That it's for, right. What is music? Is it for the artist or is it for the audience or is it a combination of both? But okay, back to the actual question. Complicated, right? So my dad, as Benny was mentioning before, is this like iconic, legendary, like top 3 of all time Brazilian jazz drummer. I say top 3. I wonder if he would be upset if I said that. He's the best.
Number 1.
To me, he's the best because I think he has the best feel. But I've also discovered I think feel is like embedded in your DNA, so I'm biased.
Yeah.
Me and my sister
also
have the same feel.
particularly Brazilian culture is like peak rhythm.
Feel.
Yeah. Like
Feel
it's
is
like
that shit.
does not get deeper than
Oof, his pocket
the
is so
Brazilian
good.
landscape.
You know what I mean? And there's like a depth to a pocket that's like cool. And then if you go beyond that, it's like, it's a thing. And I like it. I think it's cool. But like when you're talking about like what feels like your heartbeat, like what feels like just the natural rhythm of things. Because I like off-kilter weird shit. Like if we're talking about like, Zach Danziger weird shit, Owen Biddle, Questlove, D'Angelo shit. I love that. But is it making you feel like you're in the coziest womb of all time? I don't know. I think it's like it's doing that thing where you're going like, oh, that's fucking sick. That's some out shit. I love out shit, right? But whatever.
Same.
Anyway, back to the actual question. My dad doesn't know how to read music, right? So my dad, no.
Crazy.
Like, I mean, he probably knows at this point what a quarter note and an eighth note look like. But like every single person he's played with, and these are like the greats of all time, right? Like jazz greats and fucking other greats too. The Beastie Boys, like he played on their record. Everybody makes him a fucking cassette. I'm old. Everybody makes him a recording that he listens to, learns the music, and plays everything by heart. That's what it is.
Wow.
And like, to me, yes. I mean, sometimes do I feel limited by my lack of my fucking key? I don't know what happened when I had kids, but my keyboard skills went out the fucking window. They were never great, but now they're just like, I can only play in C.
It's something. So you shouldn't feel bad about that. But
That's why the transpose key exists.
exactly.
Broski,
And
I know.
also, that's a skill that you got to keep going at.
You have
but
to.
Also, I will say this: I've seen people revive their music. Like I've seen my mom, who hasn't played piano in 40 years, she'll go sit at the piano and still play Close to You.
Yeah.
By the Carpenters. And she remembers it, and I'm like, and I inherited all of her old books that and I was like, huh, you got into some shit like that's hard to read, and I promise you, she could take 1 year of piano and get probably back where she was.
Yeah,
because you've already created the pathways,
Right. I do think it could come back. Like when I start really getting into a zone, like okay, like I'm playing. But you know what I'm really good at? Programming. I'll fucking program shit out of anything. Speaking of which, I made that bass line that was like one way, a totally different way. It's fucking cool.
Nice.
Anyway, I'll play it for you later. It's
Yep.
awesome. You're gonna be excited.
Love
but
it.
yeah, no, I mean, and people are like, but I can program with feeling too. So
If I could redo my education and go back to school, I would absolutely do production. I was already good at piano when I entered college.
Yeah.
I was never going to, I mean, to be fair, I got a full scholarship for classical piano. So I did have to, if I wanted my scholarship, I needed to do that. But I would have definitely, instead of switching over to music business, which was so useless and changes year after year. I would absolutely have learned how to program, how to engineer.
best.
And because now I can only, I mean, I can turn on Logic and put my ideas in there.
Yeah.
But no, I would never be hired to engineer anything.
It's really funny because like I work cross discipline in a lot of different ways sometimes, and right now I'm working with a composer who's like fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And we were on FaceTime today, and there's this like figure that repeats, and he's like playing it out and like trying to find, because I added a couple of like weird notes into the arpeggio of this figure, and I'm like, why don't you just copy it from over there and paste it into that? And he's like, what, it's in a different key? I'm like, yeah, just.
Yeah.
But that's not the way he does it,
Yeah.
and that's not the way I do it. And so anyway, back to the original question. You know, I think that with the discipline, the same way that your mom's
Yeah.
piano could come back and mine could come back,
Yeah.
those holes can be filled if you want to fill them, if you're motivated to fill them, if you have the
That's
time in
what
your
she said.
schedule to fill
Yeah.
them, right?
Right.
Fill all the holes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that there's something that, and this has been the thing that I've been really focused on when I talk to young people now, is to find the thing that's special about what you bring to music,
Yes.
and bring that shit.
Yes.
Because it has nothing to do with how well you read, how well you play, how well you
Yes.
write, even, right?
Yeah.
But there's that something that's your little magic. What is it, and how do you make sure you're always bringing it? Yeah. So that's.
So kind of following that, Brennan, you were talking about wanting to have done production when you were in school. That was a long time ago for us, and the world is a different world now.
Long ago.
And I feel like nowadays it's like, you know, Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools, these are things that like almost everybody fucks around with now. But like being a and everybody's quote unquote a producer nowadays. Whereas back 15 plus years ago wasn't necessarily the case. That was still evolving. And so my question is, how did you get into producing and being more on that side of the creative process?
Good question. Nobody's actually ever asked me that, and so I had this
That's
like
what we
total
do here.
flashback when you asked me that.
Nice.
So when I was 17 years old, I was part of this. It was drum and bass music conglomerate. I mean, like we were just a crew. We made music together. It was dope. One of the guys engineered and I think like slept at this studio on 60 some shit street on the east side, and so yeah, we found ourselves there just making music all the time. And I remember the guys would all kind of engineer. The girls, we would sing, we would write, like we would top line these like drum and bass tracks that they were making. And I remember seeing, so I'm 17, it's 1998, right? And I'm watching this guy engineer my best friend, Serena Jones, Rodney Jones's daughter. And I was like, I need to know how to do that. That I just immediately needed to know how to do that. And I was like, and then I'm going to go to school for that shit. And the reason is because I was writing songs. I'm a songwriter, right? But I knew I wanted to know the technical side of it. First of all, because I'm like interested in technology anyway. I'm a fucking nerd. And then second was because I just didn't want to have to, I don't want to say work with anyone else. but I didn't want to have to depend on anyone else to get my ideas recorded. So
let's take a moment to recognize that.
Yeah.
Don't depend on anybody else.
Well, yeah. Okay, so that's the opposite of my other like, right? One of the cornerstones of my like foundational knowledge is don't depend on anyone. The other one is collaboration is key, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like
for sure.
it's
There's
this little like
you gotta
double-edged.
have the ability, but be open to
100%.
the collaboration.
Yeah. Because the thing is this, like, particularly with female songwriters and singer-songwriters, I'm always, like, trying to advocate for them really learning the programs because I'm like, they're stuck otherwise. And they're, like, trapped by the fucking invisible wall that somebody erected so that women wouldn't have access, right? I mean, like, whatever the fuck that is. Like, oh, is it really there? Yeah, it's fucking there, guys, okay? Like, we're at 2%. Is it really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day when I was saying like how cool my partner is. My partner's so cool, and I was like, he's so cool, and he like doesn't care about anything. And I was like, he doesn't care when I work with boys all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, because 98 out of every 100 people I have to work with are boys.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing the actual labor of, changing that, but. You also vibe with certain people, like Benny and I vibe. Am I going to cut him off the roster because I met this other chick? Like, no, but I want to be able to fold in as many women as possible. So anyway, point is, didn't want to have to depend on anybody. Learned that shit. Fucking went to SUNY Purchase for production. Now, the real true story is I went undeclared for 2 years because I was too scared to go into music because my dad's a musician. You know, I had this like weird fear mongering, like capitalism fucking bullshit in my ear, like, and ultimately like the people in the program, I was like taking as many, I don't know what you fucking call it, extra whatever.
Yep.
All the music classes I was allowed to take.
Electives. Yeah.
Those are them. I'm 43. Like I don't remember college.
Yeah.
So, and eventually the head of the production department was like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? But he didn't say it like that. But like, that's how it is in my head.
Right.
He was probably like, you really should consider switching your major to music production. And I was like, I cried a lot and then I did it.
Yeah.
So, that was my third year, whatever you call that in college. Sophomore? No. Junior. That's the one. And I was like, okay, so I have 4 years of music school to do. I don't want to graduate late. I want to graduate on time. So I did year 1 and 3 my first year. So I was doing all of the first music theory and the third. All the 1 and 3s, I did them all at the same time. And all the 2s and 4s, I did them all at the same time as well. I think that I was doing 30 credit hours and then also clocking. Like I was that asshole that was like outside as soon as the studio time would go up. And I was like, I filled out all the shit. Everybody was calling me like, Alana, can I get like 2 hours? And I would be like, yeah, I guess. But I was in the studio.
You're the kingpin of the studio.
I know, it's fucked up. But I was there until the sun came up. Like I would just be fucking in there, like making beats, recording ideas. And I remember the head of the music composition program came up to me one time and was like, after I had recorded the thing that I thought was like this masterpiece, and he was like, it's really good. You have no idea what you're doing. And I was like, you fucker. And he said something like, it's not as good as Pink or something like that. I don't know. But like the whole thing was, and I listened back to the stuff that I was making at the time.
Yeah.
And he was totally right. Like I was putting all of these ideas that were really fucking amazing down, but way too many of them.
Yep.
No regard for like structure. Like it was just like, I was just vomiting all of these ideas out into like every single thing that I was creating. So that was, I don't know how I ended up there, but that's where we are.
I feel like that's like the trajectory of like the creative journey. Is like when you're young, you're like, oh, we need to put everything, pull out the whole kitchen sink and just throw all of it at everything.
And you really can only focus on about 3 different things going on at a time in a piece of music. I recently heard somebody say that too, and that's absolutely correct. Like 3 different motions, right? Or layers, you know?
Yeah, it's like, and that's what you learn over time is like simpler is really where you're preserving the magic. And it's like if you have a really good source idea but you wash it out with a bunch of other stuff, then you're diluting the magic of that original idea.
100%. And I feel like, it's interesting. I was listening to Dua Lipa Houdini in the car today, and I was like, there's fucking nothing going on in this track. Like a lot of it is the vocal layers that give it the energy and the vibe that it needs. But
And a drum and bass.
That's pretty much what it is. It's voice, drums, and
groove.
3
I mean, like
things.
voice, groove,
Yeah.
and then like texture.
Yeah,
But
that's literally it.
And I went back to our song that we're in the middle of this song for Barbie right now, and I was like, this motherfucker too full. I'm just gonna.
There's a lot happening.
I pulled out like half of the, like there was like a hi-hat, a shaker fucking loop, a hi-hat loop, a tambourine. I was like, all this shit's gotta go. Actually, you're gonna be interested in what I'll tell you about that later. Anywho, so yeah, then you have no idea what you're doing. You throw all the shit in there. But I think it came in handy later because I'm just going to segue right into later.
Yeah.
Am I talking too much or is
No,
this how
no,
it's supposed to be?
this is your
why you're
podcast.
here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I graduated from school and oh my God, I was such a fucking psycho. I was a very pretty 22-year-old. And like probably I thought I was prettier than I was. Like I know
You're a very pretty 43-year-old too,
Thank
by the way.
you.
Yeah.
But like then I was like I thought I was like the hottest shit in the fucking oven. I don't know. And I literally put my face, like a watermark of my entire face, like a glamour shot on my resume. Printed a bunch of them out. Opened the phone book. This is like the day I get back from college. I'm like, I must find employ. And I opened the phone book.
You're graduated at this point.
Yeah, I
Okay.
graduated. Cum laude.
Nice.
Oh, she's
Scholastic.
a comer. Wow.
I come hard.
Yeah.
And then, I opened the phone book to music producers and arrangers, like the yellow pages, y'all. This was like fucking those days.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I saw one name that I recognized from one of my music classes at school. And I called them and I was like, I must intern. And they were like, okay, do you have a resume? And I faxed it over with my fucking face on it.
Amazing.
And they were like, oh, do you want to start tomorrow? And I was like, yes, I do. And that shit was fucking awesome. It was like the internship, like, honestly, I was such a fucking, I mean, like, when I think back to what I was wearing, it was like 2000. I was like wearing like
it was the worst fashion
low
era.
pants and like crop
that
tops,
was a
like
time.
low
It was
cut
the
fucking.
worst era.
It was intense.
of fashion.
And I
it
had like
was.
stripper hair.
Yeah.
So I'm like walking around this place with like
Yep.
my nipples popping. It was like a
Yep.
whole thing.
Yep.
And the only like girl in the engineering fucking
Yep.
vibes, right?
Yep.
So I was just like parading around there like a true maniac.
Tits out.
And
Yeah.
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 And I remember at one point, like the A engineer who ended up being like this lovely human, but at the time was like kind of had this like scary engineer vibe, like in the early 2000s, like that was what happened. The engineers were scary and you had to like earn your stripes and everybody was scared all the time. So he had scary engineer vibe. And I like one time we were like he was like setting up a session for some shit. And I said, did you know you could cascade the inputs if you press this, and that? And he was like, oh shit, this girl's dead. So then from that point on, he hated me. And then
Because you knew more.
because I knew my shit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like, so, and then he went on a trip and God, what a time. I changed everybody's icon on the server to a picture of a dildo. Now,
Amazing.
no, but everybody liked it. Everybody who was there liked
Right.
it. Like the owner of the company loved it. Everybody there loved it. It was
There's
only
no
boys.
HR, so yeah, it's great.
No HR.
Yeah.
Actually, there was HR, but he liked it too.
Great.
Everybody's boys. This is what you can do when
Right.
everybody's boys. You could do
Yeah.
dildos. Yes. So the two women
Read
that
the room
also
well.
worked there, they were just like horny bitches too. So it was fine. So he comes back from his trip. Everybody shits dildos. He has like a massive problem with this, and I was like, oh, okay, like, because I wasn't hired yet. I was still interning.
You were a threat, though.
But the problem was I was also like already co-producing and co-writing on people's work.
Yeah.
Because they found out that I could sing, and then they found out that I could write, and then I was like doing all that shit. Mm-hmm. So shit got weird. I ended up leaving to go to a different place to engineer for this record label. It was like a tiny record label. It was adorable. And then they called me like 2 weeks later and they were like, one of our engineers left. Would you come work here? And I was like, yeah, I'm still 22 years old. It's a great opportunity. Nobody really, like at that time, that was kind of, that doesn't happen, that you're 22 out of college and you're engineering somewhere as their like second engineer, right? So I was in the B studio, but I ended up getting like a lot more of the tracks coming my way because they knew I could produce too. They wanted me to add the drums. They're all like older guys, they're in their 30s and shit. And somebody like young and interesting comes in, they like want my ideas. So I start like, I'm getting like guitars, and they're like, can you put stuff on here? And I'm like, yeah, cool. So that was that like chapter of my life. I started engineering and producing at this music for ads jingle house is what I don't think you call it that anymore, because
It's a different thing these days.
it was like custom,
It's not as centralized.
ad music house, whatever. And then in 2006 or 7 or something, I met the person who brought me into the film TV world, because he took a studio there, and we started collaborating, and he was just like, oh shit. And that was Ali.
Shout out Ali.
Shout out Ali. And I would say, like, every time anybody's like, did you ever have a mentor? I'm like, no. Nobody mentored me. But if I had to be like, oh, somebody has me under the knife and they're like, who's your fucking mentor? I'd be like, this dude. And the thing is because I learned a lot in that period of time working with him. And then, I fucking did that for like 10 years or some shit like that, and then moved out here. And it was really funny because I was telling the story the other day. Hold on, I'm going to adjust my microphone because I think it's like burning a hole into my finger. Okay. So I was telling the story the other day. I fucking got out here, landed in the airplane, and same day, Julia Michaels and Julianne Jordan, who are music supervisors, who I'd been working with for a long time, but they called me directly, and they were like, hey, so we know you're in New York, but we have this thing, Rebel Wilson's hosting the VMAs, and we were going to get the Pitch Girls together. Oh, I had already done Pitch Perfect 1 at this point. We're going to get them together to do like a song or something. Can you do the vocal arrangement? And I was like, it's so funny. I landed here today. I live here now, and I can do it. And
Wow.
I was staying in West Hollywood, and the session was in Larchmont Village, and I walked.
Yes.
And because I'm from New York, it's like 2
Yeah.
miles or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna walk that shit. But then I found out that like sidewalks don't exist on certain stretches of Beverly, so I'm like fucking through the grass, like fucking hot as balls, out of breath. I definitely rented a car for the way back, but yeah, that was wild. So anyway, but that session was with Sam Hollander, who's a fucking...
I just read his book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
He's rad. So we fucking vibed out that day. And then Rebel, actually, who I knew from Pitch Perfect, she was like, oh, do you want to produce the songs for my series that was coming up on ABC? And I was like, hell yeah. So she hired me to do that. Pitch Perfect 2 came around, and I had just had my first child, and Rebel was like, did you guys call Alana yet? And they were like, oh, she just had a baby. She was like, call Alana. And they called me. So like Rebel really was somebody who was pretty instrumental in like pushing my career through. And I think like we always had a great working relationship. Like I love working with her because she really gives 110% to everything she does. I also find her fucking hilarious. So,
She is funny.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So, and she kills it. Like we were literally, we've been in the studio before where I've like feel comfortable. I have the take. This is gonna work. Blah blah blah. And she's like, I think I can do better. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Yeah. And sure enough, she does it better. And she will hit whatever note, like high ass, like operatic shit. Like yeah, she's in. And she doesn't back down from anything. So anyway, she really like pushed that through because I don't know if they were gonna call me for Pitch Perfect 2. And Pitch Perfect 2, that sequence of events is what ended up leading to me getting Trolls because Alex Nixon at DreamWorks called Angela Leas at Universal and was like, we want the person who did motherfucker, we want the person who did.
There's too many things.
There's too many projects, you guys. I don't know.
Too many
We want the
wins.
person who did Pitch to do Trolls. And that was interesting because I was already doing the Chipmunks series.
Yes.
Which was another thing that I got when I first got to LA because I had been doing the movies with Ali. And I was doing all the vocals and we were collaborating on everything else. Although, no, he was adding some vocals as well. But I kind of got his blessing to just go ahead and do the series, to kind of take over the series. Because I don't know why, but I did, which was cool. So then I started doing that series. So it's weird because like now I do all this animation and I fucking love it. But I'm like, how did that this is how it happened, right?
Yeah.
Trolls ended up turning into also Madagascar, ended up turning into this other series that, like, I don't know how many series I've done now, a lot, but
It all snowballs.
it
rolls
snowballs.
one thing into the
and
next.
it's cool. I love it. But, like, I also like doing other things, you know? So, but I do those too.
Yeah, I was having lunch with a friend a couple weeks ago, and my life's been, had its challenges the last few years, and we were talking about some of those things, and because I moved out to LA 3 years ago and was in New York for about the 10 years before that, and New York was like just a real string of really great things happening, and not a lot of. It was just a lot of win after win, and just it was all great and flying high, and out here has been great too, but it's been more complicated, put it that way. And he was like, what do you think the difference is between New York and here? And I was like, oh, and when I got to New York, I didn't care about anything. I was just, other than like, I just wanted to be there and get involved with whatever I could, and didn't really have an agenda, didn't really have anything to lose. And I was like, out here, it's like I'm older, I have more success under my belt, I have more fear of having things to lose and those kinds of things. And he was like, yeah, it sounds like in New York you were allowing life to happen more to you versus trying to make it happen for you. And that really hit me. I was like, oh, that's so fucking true. Like, that is on the money. But it's like, I think that's like a good example of that. It's like, because I did a lot of Broadway in New York, or one show, and had no intention of really doing that, but it turned into like one of the biggest things of my life. And it's like that idea of just sort of allowing what life has in store for you to kind of, when we did the Cocomelon songs, like not out here, that wasn't the plan. It's like, oh, we're gonna like tackle this kids market.
I wish I could be doing that every day. Yeah.
No, and I love that what you're saying about allowing life to happen and rather than happening to life. But I think it's like always got to be a balance of both, because
100%.
whatever, like, I think the animation thing aligns also with who I am and where I am in life, where I have these kids and I'm working on shows they like. They think it's cool. Like, I'm doing Addams Family. I get to bring my son to the premiere. Right now I'm about to start working on my daughter's favorite show. And
That's so cool.
it's so cool. She's one and like, when I say favorite show, I don't give her a lot of TV. She's like not even 2 yet, but she does like one particular show. She fucking hands me the remote and she goes, meow. And she wants to watch Gabby's Dollhouse.
Okay.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that's also like, I could segue right there into this like other part of fucking the story, which is that I also do vocal production. So aside from like all the songwriting that I do, yes, I have 1,000 songs that are in like film and TV, right? Yeah. But I also do, and like producing, blah, blah. But I also do vocal production. And it's another like true passion of mine to like record people, whether they're artists or actors or like children who are sleeping at my house for the night. And making those memories, I mean, making these very special moments happen. So whether it's with like an indie artist that is like, oh, this is what my budget is, I'm like, you can't pay me, just come over, we'll do your record. Or it's with Julian Casablancas in the studio with Daft Punk for a week in New York City, working on like 1.5 songs. I think vocal production, if somebody were to ask me like, what's your thing, that's my thing. Because it's like somewhere in between the medical profession, right? But of therapy, not of removing skin tags. It's like creating this environment where somebody can be completely vulnerable, existing in the motion of the song, and then also having the ability to communicate physically with somebody what they need to be doing in order to get the sound right. So my first priority is always like existing in the motion of the sound of the holy fuck, what was that?
It's the
dogs.
It's Rick wrestling out there. Yeah.
So like the first priority is existing in the emotion of the song, and the second is making certain sonic choices around it, like never to compromise the emotion of the song. But yeah, like I could literally talk about vocal production and like tracking vocals and comping for many hours. So we don't have time like that. But what I will say is I will comp in a breath. Like I comp in the most.
I wish we could get a clip of you working.
Oh, you
because
can.
you're like a machine.
Oh, it's weird,
like
right?
You have it all just, and not just like the technical aspect of it. It's like you can see in your mind how you're just translating what you have in your mind to the computer.
Yeah.
And you've got like a very efficient way of doing that. Like you're hearing it all of it before it's like that's guiding those things that are happening. But those things are like, it's like a mad scientist, like just
it's pretty weird.
Getting it all.
I've watched
out.
myself work and I'm just like, that's crazy.
But it's amazing.
Because the thing is, like, I also have no idea what I'm doing. I'm in a flow state when I'm doing it, and if I break that for some reason, I will not know how to execute the thing I do 900 times a day with my fingers. Like I'll look down and I'll be like, oh God, is it Option Shift? What? Like, wait, I will not be able to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. But when I'm just in it and I'm doing it, the computer's an extension of the brain, right? So it's not like I don't feel like there's anything in between me and the sound, right? So I'm just like navigating through it, and I know how to do that. It's like driving. You're not thinking like gas, brake, fucking.
Therein lies the reason why I wish I knew more about production, because I would love to score and have all of the capability and training to have and piano skill to have I know every note in the orchestra, at my fingertips, but I don't, and I often hear a bunch of stuff in my head, but like that, what an amazing thing that you're able to do and to pull all of that out as an extension of your brain. Whereas I'm just going on logic and be like, dee, dee, dee,
no, but
it's
it's another instrument. It's another.
But that's how it starts, though, right? Yes, 100%. Like when people are like, "What's your instrument?" I'm like, "Computer." Because it is. Because I will fucking play the shit out of piano, but I'm not fucking playing it. I'm putting it in. And guess what? Like, I'm making it good because I will move things manually note by note. I will fucking change the velocity on something.
Sure.
I can kind of like play something in.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll like the feel of that. I'll take that. I'll like analyze like what the fuck I'm doing, and I'll use that like as a sort of feel map. But I mean, I think the thing is that's how it starts, right? I didn't always use Melodyne like that. I got the program. This was when I was living in New York. It was like right after, I don't know, I feel like it was like soon after it. I don't know. It was like 2000 and some shit, before 10. And I took the manual on the subway and I read it from front to back. I just read the manual, the whole fucking thing. And I was like, this is how it's going to be. And I got in, so then I kind of knew how to use it, and I figured out a lot of things just by using it. But it wasn't always, didn't look like that when I started. It was like ding, ding, ding. And I think you have to go back to when you first started learning how to play piano and thinking about how rocky that was and how slow that was and how disjointed that might have felt at the time. But I believe that if you dedicate the time in the same way that you believe that my piano will come back, I think your production would just be like, boop. But part of the thing is, it's that invisible wall, right? You have to understand that you can do it and believe that you can do it in order to be able to do it. Like, it's the same thing with fixing cars. We're like, can't fucking do that shit. I bet you anything, if you look at, we're fucking doctors. I bet if anything, you look at YouTube for long enough, we could fix that shit.
Benny
learn
learned
anything.
everything he knows about production on YouTube.
Straight
there you
up.
go.
You can learn anything.
And Benny fucking rules.
It's also hard too, because like when you're young, it's like that. Not just I feel like you can learn things easier. You're also just
hungrier. You have the time in your schedule to do it.
Yeah, like it all works in your favor more to develop new skills. Whereas you get older, that becomes not that you can't do it. You can do anything. Like we're saying, I think I 100% agree. You can do anything if will you be like the top 3 at it? Not necessarily, but like you
Why
can
not,
learn to and it's entirely possible.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I think that like addendum to what you're saying is, neuroplasticity doesn't go away. They disproved this, right? Like they took all these like older cab drivers in London. Don't quote me on this, but quote me because we're filming. But It was something to the effect of they prove that neuroplasticity doesn't go away because all of these older cab drivers who started driving in London, which has really complicated streets, developed all of these neural pathways out of necessity at like in middle age, right? So it can happen,
London
right?
cab drivers we were just in London a couple months ago. Shit's impressive.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to, when you're adapting to the situation, your brain is going to change. Is it as flexible as it is when you're 4? No. But just fucking, it's effort, right? You got to put in the action. And that's what I tell everybody that I'm talking to, because I talk to a bunch of young people all the time, right? Because I'd be doing that. And I'm like,
Philanthropist.
it's the effort. You have to put in the effort, and you have to actually, I say this is like really unhealthy, it's toxic shit, but it's true. You got to be better than everybody else. The only reason people are hiring me to do the thing that I'm doing is because they think I'm the best person for the job. That's why anybody hires anybody for doing anything, right? And I still demo on stuff. I demo on spec for shit all the time, you know? And I get hired when my shit's the best. And then there are other avenues where people already know I'm the best, and they hire me without that, you know? So I think, and it's, by the way, it's like the best for that job, but the best also anyway.
Period.
No, but no,
Full
I mean,
stop.
I think that's another thing. It's like, I feel like we have all this humility and it's not necessary. I feel like,
I think it can honestly be detrimental
no, it really
to
is.
a creative mind.
Particularly with women. This is something that I've found in my work. I do like work with women and trying to, you know, the shit that we've been talking about. I was just at this thing, a colleague of mine, Simone Torres, who's this amazing vocal producer, throws this thing called Soundtrack Mixers. It's fucking dope. It's all women and gender expansive folks. Come to this beautiful studio called Just for the Record. The beginning is just sort of mix and mingle. Then there's like speed networking where you find somebody across the room and you talk to them. The mentors all have like a purple lanyard so you can sort them out. And talking to them directly, just like a whole period of time where... And then you go in and there's breakout rooms, mixing, production, mastering, post-production.
That's so cool.
Oh my God, it's so cool. And it's just these like young, brilliant women. I met I'm like, I have like 7 new mentors now. I mean, mentees. But like, that's the thing though. The mentee is also the mentor. You know what I mean? You
100%.
learn so much through like these mentoring experiences.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, brilliant fucking, but that's one thing that we're constantly talking about. So one of my friends is this wonderful producer and mixer, Lynn Earls. She's also like, you know, super accomplished, been in it for 23 years, you know, blah, blah, blah. And we realized like we never talk about what we do. We don't post about it. We don't, because I feel like the way that women are socialized, we're socialized to be more humble. We're not supposed to be, you know, braggy. You know what I mean? It's not bragging, first of all, for me to post about an accomplishment. What does that do? It increases visibility in a career path, right? Hello.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if some young woman who's looking at, you know, social media and finds somebody doing something that's interesting to her that she could see herself doing.
Yeah.
The only reason that I had exposure to it is because I had exposure to these guys recording me like up close and personal when I was in an age where I felt like that was something that I wanted to do and I was already interested in technology. But I also do sometimes this work with this organization called Girls Make Beats. It's a nonprofit. They're fucking rad. Where it's 100% scholarship based. Girls in underserved communities come in, they learn how to use Ableton, Pro Tools, Logic. They certify, right? So they can certify girls and all that. They do Zooms so that there's like an international audience as well. The girls learn to DJ. They fucking DJ parties. It's awesome.
Cool.
I mean, like, it's a really cool organization. And these girls are interested in it. They're good at it, you know, and it also gives them an outlet to be able to be successful in music that's not just being an artist.
For sure.
I didn't want to be an artist. I knew in college...
Recording artist.
I knew in college, I was like, I don't want anybody to recognize my face. I wanted like total anonymity. I wanted to be able to just like have a regular ass person life.
Right.
So I just was just like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do production. And I love that choice for me.
Well, it worked out pretty damn well.
Yeah,
So
I like it.
on that note, I want to rewind back to when you started working with Ali on music for film, TV, picture, all of that. Well, I've got a couple questions. We'll get into this one first. So you were talking Alvin and the Chipmunks. Always have been curious how the Alvin and the Chipmunks sound technically was achieved. How did you guys produce those vocals to create the chipmunk sound?
So that's an amazing question. And like, I think about this all the time because it was really funny. Like, this moment in time was really funny because the way they did it originally was tape. They slowed down the tape to 50%, half speed. And, but that was a man singing. And I'm not a man singing. So I was like, okay, how the fuck do I get it to make it sound like the same, but with my voice that has a higher timbre, the frequencies are different, but whatever. And so I did like a lot of maths on paper. Like I did all the maths. I was like, oh, carry the
like frequency maths.
First of all, none of it worked. Like I forgot all of the maths that I ever learned. I think it's weird that like we don't pluralize math. We just say math, but it's like maths. Anyway,
It is very multiple.
it's so many different things. So I'm like doing all this like weird math and I thought I figured out what the fuck. No, I just really needed to slow everything down at 9 semitones for me instead of 12. And then I could sound like the Chipmunks. But then if I wanted to sound like the Chipettes, I had to slow it down less because their voices are actually deeper in timbre than the Chipmunks, which is kind of the opposite of what you would think would have happened. But that's sort of how it ended up happening. So the way we did it was through the like rack time shift plugin that comes in with Pro Tools on the Verispeed mode. So now I do it with Elastic Audio. And yeah, it was pretty cool figuring out a lot of it ended up being trial and error, but a funny story. Nope, can't tell it because it can't be. Okay, I'll tell you later. Okay. But yeah, so we do it digitally. If Ali is gonna add like layers of vocals to make it sound a little thicker or whatever, which he used to do, he would do it at half. So he would do it at half speed and I would do it. And oh my God, originally we recorded in half speed on Pro Tools. If you press Shift, Command, Spacebar, or Shift 3, I guess, a numerical 3, it'll record or play back in half speed. So if you press Shift and Spacebar, it'll play back in half speed. So that was what we were doing. And I would just like try and do man voice. That was for the first movie. That's what we did the whole time. I just did man voice the whole time. And then I found out that if you use Verispeed, I could slow it down to 9 semitones. And then it would be perfect. And I didn't have to do man voice.
Interesting.
It was much better.
And so it would have to be like you would perform it in a different key.
Yeah.
And then
not only a different key, but like slower. So whatever that is, 75% slower, 80, whatever the fuck. See, I can't do the math still.
Yeah.
But it was like 70 to 80% slower and lower. I would perform it there.
Interesting.
So we also had to like figure out what key the song was going to be based in, where I was going to end up singing it. Which was always really interesting.
Was it hard to make it sound natural, picking it to the target key and tempo? Like if you performed it at a slower tempo, would it feel sometimes weird?
No,
and like
it's
have
fucking
to
a really weird process.
Yeah, I imagine.
But because part of the thing is like, not only are the vowels extending, but your consonants are getting 70 to 80% faster as well. So how do you get all of that information across of your consonants? You have to really accentuate them. It's pretty weird. And also like I would sing at a level like 12. Anytime I was singing Chipmunk stuff, like any riffs that I was doing, I would just like give it my full blown like Celine Dion type of commitment to every take of every song.
Nice.
And when you speed it up, it sounds kind of normal. It sounds almost like you didn't even put that much heart into it. So it's like however much heart, you got to double it. It's like the performances were actually wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always curious about that. And then you guys also did Pitch Perfect. Did you do the infamous Cup song?
So funny. I don't actually remember if I had anything to do with Cups, but I know that one of my colleagues did. He did that. He was like co-produced the track that ended up being like a huge hit.
Yeah, it was like
I don't think his
massive.
name even went on it, but his name is Jordan Yeager, and he did that shit. So
Nice.
call him up.
Nice.
But no, anyway, so like Cups. Did I do anything on Cups? I don't fucking remember. But maybe I don't really know. Maybe I did some vocal stuff. I can't remember. But the fun thing was that first movie we were hired to produce someone else's arrangements. It was this arranger who's like a big Broadway arranger, and he's fucking rad, Tom Kitt. So we were hired. Oh, was he at D-Town when you were there?
he had a room up
there.
there for the last little bit that I was
Yeah.
up there. Yeah.
So he came in, and we were just there to simply record the singers doing what he was arranging. And at one point, there was like a moment in the movie that they wanted to be different. It was like a moment in one of the arrangements that they wanted to be like more something, like more. And they called me and they're like, "Hey, can you arrange a cappella?" And I was like, "Yeah." Why? I mean, and this is the thing. It's like I said this recently on a panel. I was like, whenever anybody asks me if I can do something, I say yes, because I think I can.
Yeah.
But also beyond thinking that I can, I'm not fucking stupid enough to think that I can do it alone.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, for the acapella thing, I was, because I was like, I know singing and I know how to harmonize. I've always been harmonizing since
But
I was
that's
a child.
a big part of being a producer is like not just doing it, but like knowing how to just get it done.
Yeah.
Period.
Who to bring in.
Yeah, like the
when to bring them
network
in.
and- exactly.
When to kick them out. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
My friend is producing, just shot her own short film that she wrote, and wants me to score it, which is I'm capable of doing, but by proxy, Benny is also going to be scoring it because he's going to teach
We'll
me
bust
how to do
out the
it.
BBC
Yeah.
It's
orchestra
gonna be-
libraries.
It's gonna be
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. I think like once the mystery of how it's done
Yeah.
is gone, you'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
I can actually totally.
Like I can come up with the idea and put it down. I
Yeah.
just need someone like Benny who's
Kind of
But
what
you
we're
don't.
is-
You don't actually.
to finesse. I need the finesse part of it.
Okay.
But, yeah.
For now.
For
Yeah.
now. Benny's gonna hold my hand while I do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And that's important too, by
Yeah.
the way. Like
Yeah.
right now, I just started on Wednesday season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I should say this. I co-arranged this. Oh my God, how are we doing on time?
No, we're good.
We're fine.
We're good. Yeah.
I co-arranged this this cello version of the Rolling Stones' "Paint It Black" for Wednesday season 1, which is like a whole to do. People fucking
Grammy
loved
nominated.
it. Ended up getting nominated
Just
for a Grammy.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank
Major
you.
congrats.
And the story of the way that came to fruition was really interesting. I didn't actually know the composer of the show, Chris Bacon, at the time. And because this piece was supposed to be solo cello. So I brought in a colleague of mine because I was like, okay, I know how I want to go. I sent her this like piano map of how I wanted it to go. I had it like basically all mapped up in my head. I was like, make this fucking cool, put it into a cello, and let's fucking go. She added some like amazing runs, and had all of these like ideas of how to orchestrate. Oh, let's make this part Bartok pizzicato. I was like, whatever the fuck that is, do it. Because at the time I didn't know what it was. But like during this journey, have learned like so much about what that means. And her name is Esin Adingöz. No, that's not it. Aiden Göz. Aiden. It's something like that, but she's Turkish. So anyways, she rocked the shit out of it, and then it was living in the cut as a solo cello, and then the last minute Tim Burton was like, we need to orchestrate this, like we need something around here around this. And Chris Bacon, like literally the night before, fucking, because they had their orchestra date the next day. He fucking did this brilliant ass shit. We didn't know each other. We ended up meeting later after we were nominated for a Grammy, because we're like, hey, we're nominated together. Like, we should be friends. And then turned out we were like, oh shit, you're fucking awesome. We're on. Now we're fucking doing. Now we're doing Wednesday 2 together.
That's awesome.
So what's cool about it is that. And this has happened to me in the past before, doing something that was like orchestral in nature, is that I'm approaching it differently because of my background, right? So my background, I'm field-based, I'm this based, I'm whatever, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this like fucking, this like classical piece, and I'm like, oh, why don't we fuck this up and do a weird triplet arpeggio? Like, yes, that's cool. That's not something they would have naturally, that somebody with that background would have naturally come to.
That's where the magic is, though.
That's where the magic is.
Breaking those rules.
Yes, 100%. And I've experienced that on more than one occasion. One time I got hired on this gig because they thought it was going to be this like a cappella arrangement, which like after Pitch Perfect, everybody was like, she does a cappella. I'm like, not exactly, but okay. So they hired me to do this a cappella arrangement. They were like, actually, it's going to be orchestral now. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah. It was a reimagining of the Jurassic Park theme, John Williams. And I was like, okay, I hear it like this. I put down this like horrible mock-up. I sent it to the place if it was for this trailer. And they were like, we love it. Blow it out. And then I sent it to my friend who is this really, really brilliant composer. And he did something else because that's not how he heard it. And I was like, oh, yay, this is great. I sent that in. They were like, no, we like yours. And I was like, oh, God. So I was like, they actually liked the first thing that I sent in. He ended up doing an amazing job of orchestrating that concept. We recorded it with a small orchestra, and it was fucking rad. And Peter Rotter, who owns a company called Encompass Music, they contract a lot of the film days on it. He contracted this small orchestra for me and conducted it. And he was like, wow, like the way you approached it was so not anything that I would have done. Right. And that's exactly.
Well, I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier.
With that
it's
theory
like,
thing.
Yeah. It's like that. A lot of people with a lot of experience doing a certain thing, there becomes patterns. There's rules that they learn and follow. But that's when the individual filters can be more neglected versus if you're just coming at something, it's like, okay, these are the elements that I'm working with, but these are the ideas, the core fundamental ideas that I'm having, and those are always the most compelling things.
That's the thing. So like the first Paint It Black solo cello thing, I already heard, like, I was like, okay, I was like, that's not going to be interesting enough on solo cello. Like, it's a beautiful melody, but the scene is this like frenetic energy, and I was like, we gotta dun 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 dun. And so that was like already in my head from the moment they said, oh, it should be like this. And I think that that's also just like from being around music my whole life. It's just like
your antenna got super developed.
The antenna. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have like another one that's like really underdeveloped, and I'm just like, oh, somebody help me.
I mean, that's can't have everything.
No,
antenna
you
for
can't.
everything.
And you shouldn't either. You know what I mean?
You can
because
that can
that's
be an
where
asset.
that's where collaboration is the beauty.
That's
You're
100%
combining
it.
all of the powerful antennas
Yes.
in their own respective ways.
Yes. And that's why it's so important to really hone in on what makes you special and bring that and like really develop that essence of like, what's it? Because here's the other thing about the happy accident of what happens when you start doing weird shit with your MIDI. I had, for this new thing, it's Dance of the Nights from Romeo and Juliet, and I had like all of the MIDI channels, and I sort of like took some shit, I pasted it onto one channel, and then I was like, I want this to be a triplet figure. I moved some shit around, and there was there were these two notes that stayed where they were and made this like really cool arpeggio, and one of them was like a weird, like a little bit of a weird note that wouldn't have been in the chord. And it was my favorite thing about it, you know? And then I handed it off to Chris, and he fixed the note. I was like, put the wrong notes back.
Straight up. Straight up.
And he was like, wait, really? He was like,
what's that Office quote? Sorry, did
No,
the
that's
Office. It's like, is it Angela? She's like, Jazz, just
What
play
is
the right
jazz?
notes.
Just play all the right notes. Just play the right notes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like the wrong ones, and that's the thing. They're not like wrong, but they're to that mind they're wrong. Because it was funny because I tried to actually first collaborate on it with Essen, and I sent it to her, and our ideas were just like not gelling on this one. So I was like, okay, hold on. But she did the same fix that he did. He put the notes where they should be, and I was like, what makes it? I like that it's off-putting because they're a little bit, one's a whole step higher than you want it to be, and one's like a half step lower, and you're just like, oh. But guess what? It's in some of the background parts of what's going on in the actual piece. So it's like kind of cool. So anyway, why was I? Oh yeah. So yeah, I got hired on Pitch Perfect to do the acapella arrangements because they were like, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." But I actually had no idea what I was talking about because really I was just like, I'm just going to put a bunch of voices and make it sound like a pop record. And that was what I wanted to do because that was where it was coming from my perspective. And for that, it was perfect because what they needed was they had this wonderful acapella arrangement for the end, which Ed Boyer and Deke Sharon had done. And they just wanted the end to be like a little more something. Dubstep was cool at the time. I did this like dubstep kind of like cool fucking ending for it. And they were like, oh my God, amazing. Can you do this other arrangement for the film? And then from there, the second movie came around and I did a lot more arranging on that one. But I would still send these poor guys like fucking 90 track, like sounds like a record, sounds like an actual, like you're listening, you're like, wait, I'll play you one after. Nice. Because Esther Dean, who was one of the stars of those movies, hit me up because she had released a single around the time one of the movies was coming out. And she was like, oh, can you do an a cappella version of this? And I was like, yes. But the objective was to get it as close to the record as possible. And when you hear it, you're like, that's not a cappella. And that was something that I learned on the third movie is like there is a lot of cool shit and charm about actual a cappella, like the way that it is supposed to be. And it gets even cooler when we collaborate on it, right? Because all of this cool voice leading and different chords and like rearrangements that are happening that I wouldn't necessarily think to do in my approach, but then I get to beef that up and make that sound like cooler, you know what I mean? And so we get this cool hybrid.
I mean, it eventually turns in through collaboration, it turns into something that's greater than every individual involved.
Yeah.
And that's when these things can create lives of their own and are almost things that don't belong to anybody, just they belong to the world because it came from the world collective.
Yeah.
And that I think is one of, I mean, almost any great thing, that element is involved. But just because I'm sure you have some fun stories. You've worked with so many stars, Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, different people. Just kidding. Kesha, Daft Punk. I mean, I'm sure the list goes on. Are there any good behind the scenes Miley stories? What's it like being in the studio with Daft Punk or just working? I mean, anything that comes to your mind.
Okay, so I'll do like a adorable one for a few of them.
Okay.
Miley, I worked with when she was really young. We were obviously still doing Hannah Montana. She came into the studio and she literally was like, y'all are gonna love me. I'm so fast. And she was not wrong. She fucking went in there, sang the pants off of this song, which was like cool. I realized later I had kind of like stolen a riff from War Pigs.
Oh,
Like,
epic.
Amazing. But this song was, I rode all night on a big old bus.
Dope.
Anyway, I was like, oh shit, I stole War Pigs. Fuck. But anyway, it was cool. She sang the shit out of it. She was great. And because we had so much time at the end of the session, we were like, let's just play. And we were recording at Resonate Studios, and the owner of the studio was like the sweetest guy, John Van Est. He's so adorable. And he had these like fun bean bags on this like beautiful concrete floor, and we just like were diving onto the bean bags and coasting across the floor. And I found out later that he was like clenching so hard because he had just like polished his floor, and we scratched the shit out of it with all of our shenanigans. So that's
Got to make Miley feel at home, though.
gotta make Miley feel at home.
Yeah.
All for Miley. Working with Kesha was awesome. She also, I mean, like all of these girls like could really just fucking sing way better than people would expect, you know? And Kesha actually started working with her a long time ago before she started doing the stuff that she's famous for. She was coming into my studio recording like alternative music. I can't fucking even remember why, but then we got reacquainted later, and then I recorded her on Timber and something else for her album. And it was funny because she was like, "Is this corny, like Timber?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so, but like maybe it's good." Like,
Yeah. I mean, it speaks for itself.
It
It's
speaks for itself. It was a
massive
huge song.
It was a huge hit.
success.
But yeah, it was fucking rad. Daft Punk was awesome. It was cool. Like there was like one dude who was like always really like into it, and another guy who was like kind of quiet, like on the side.
Like out of the two dudes, yeah.
Yeah, so like one was just like sitting on the side, and he was like feeling it, but the other one was like much more like animated about it. And Julian, I've been working with for a really long time. I still work with him to this day.
Julian Casablancas.
Oh yeah, that's the one. I work on his stuff with the Voidz. It's his band that's like a little more out there, but we have a lot of fun doing cool vocal stuff. I will send you some.
Nice.
And yeah, he was just sort of like really like in the process like that. We were there for a week. I was like, why do we need a week to do like one song? Because I'm coming from film, TV, and previously ads where you're like, you have hours to do one song. But what I've learned from Julian and why I love working with him and having that be sort of parallel to the other stuff that I do is there's this whole other area of exploration and music making that's happening kind of like outside the structure of what I normally do. And I love that process too. We're just like floating in the fucking ether, just like plucking weird shit from other dimensions.
It can be overwhelming if you think too far into it. Because
Oh, yeah.
it can make you feel a little out of control.
No, yeah, because
But-
sometimes we'll be on a song for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 years
Yep.
on a song because it's like, oh, the high part is not quite right. But you know what? It's not quite right. And I've always like, it's funny because like he has like, I call it laser ears, or maybe he called it laser ears. I don't know, but now we both call it laser ears because this motherfucker, like, he'll be sitting there, he'll be like, oh, I like this part of this take, this part of this take, blah, blah. And then I put in the parts that I like because we don't have the same taste. And he lets me get away with some of it. He's like, okay. But then some of it, he's like, was that 9? That was take 9? Because it's bumming me out. And I'm like,
Can't get it by.
and guess what? Like, because the way he's hearing it, it's such a bigger picture than what I'm necessarily listening to in that moment. But that's, I think, why we work well together, because we're both listening for different shit. And sometimes he wins and sometimes I win. But I think in the end, we all win.
Yeah,
because,
for sure. Once
we-
everybody is vibing, that's when you know that you're in a special place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes he's like, oh, I want to change this one thing. And it's a thing that I loved. And I'm like, why? And then he changes it and it's fucking better. So I just trust the process with him because he's really sitting with this shit in a way that I'm not.
Yeah.
Right?
Got to trust the process.
Yeah.
Full stop. Like that's how you get to the promised land.
Yeah.
Is just go through the process.
And I feel like always after a session with him, I come back to my regular work and I'm like, oh shit. Like I just approach it a little bit differently. And I think that, one side feeds the other. Right. So yeah, it's cool.
And then a couple more questions, if you have the time.
I do.
Worst gig ever. Could be anything.
Hold on. Like worst gig ever. Worst.
Like not necessarily like just any sort of job.
Anything
Just
I
a
ever
nightmare.
did working. Okay, I have one.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
So when I was 17 years old, I worked at the iconic coffee shop at Union Square.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. I know. What the
coffee
fuck?
shop.
Chase Bank? Like, get the fuck out of here.
I know. I was like, this is like truly soul crushing.
I can't believe they
like
did
it's like
that.
it's a Chase ATM.
They better put that shit back. Anyway.
Like that was.
Put it back the way you found it.
That was a tough loss.
No, horrible. But I
have a
worked
funny
there.
David Blaine story from the coffee shop. But
And
continue.
actually, it's a funny story about the coffee shop, about the way I got that job, too, because I had no experience, but they didn't hire people based on experience. So anyway, I'm a teenager working at the coffee shop, and like, I was like very good at waiting tables, and I very liked it. I would still do
Much like.
I still would like to do that today. Like,
Yeah.
I like doing it. I like connecting with people, making recommendations. I was always really efficient. I would like bust my own tables. I would like do all the things, right? People would order a rosé. I'd be like, no problem. We didn't have rosé. I would just like put a little red wine in their shit. Listen, here's the deal.
Just got to make the customer happy.
But like, that's what it is. It's a little bit of skin contact. So what? It's
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's later than usual.
Yeah.
So anyway, they hired this manager. I think his name was Eric, but not like the owner Eric, a different Eric. Maybe his name was something else. But he was like fucking, I think he had like PTSD from something. Like, I'm not sure, because he fucking did not like something that I was doing. Like, he asked me one day why I dropped the check before busting the table. And I was like, I never did anything by accident, right? They had asked me for the check before I cleared the table. And by the way, I bust more tables than any other wait staff in there, because I was always like trying to turn my shit over. Not because actually I wanted to make more money, but because I have ADHD and I needed to be efficient.
Yeah.
Going, getting it.
So I dropped a check on a table that wasn't done eating. They paid, they left, and he immediately was like, why didn't you bust this table? And I was like, I'm good. Actually, I know how to do my job. Thanks. Because like, I was telling him the truth.
'Cause they
I
asked for
didn't
it.
know I needed to like be like polite. And that was something I learned way later in life. I think that's from being neurodiverse. But anyway, so he fired me. Or no, he wrote me up and then ended up firing me. And then, but what was weird is that he fired me, but then also didn't tell anybody that he fired me. So I saw the GM while I was walking. She was like, why didn't you ever come back to work? And I was like, oh, Eric fired me. And she was like, no, he didn't. And I was like, oh, he told me he did. Like, I thought, so that was the worst. No, but I liked that job. So maybe it wasn't the worst, but like, he was the worst.
Poor ending.
Yeah.
Bad
yeah,
ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was like, oh, do you want to come back? And I was like, no. I
Not
have
in
another
that
job
environment
now.
that's been created. Yeah.
I had another job already. I was like paralegaling for something. No, was I paralegaling? No, that's like an actual job. I was like the assistant to a lawyer. So I was like
Nice.
writing up all these like fucking
Just
things that I
more
had no
Assistant to
business.
the paralegal.
I was like, this needs a comma here. They're like, no, you can't put a comma. If you put a comma, it makes it illegal.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you were such a go-getter as a hostess.
Waiter.
Waiter.
Yeah.
But we went to the Lakers game last night, and there was this kid that was like, when the team's on the other side of the court, he like goes out there and like scrubs the floor, and dude was like
On it.
crushing it.
Have you
Crushing
ever
it.
seen the one who
Like-
like is doing it and then like runs right into the wall and like knocks himself
The
out?
tennis one? Yes, it's so good. I love
so
that one.
good.
But this kid, and he was a teenager or young kid, but like was committed to the he was after it. I was like, that kid is gonna go on to do
Whatever
he wants.
something
Whatever
really
he
fire.
Whatever he
Yeah.
wants.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing that's so cool.
Except
about
maybe
it.
play professional basketball.
Probably not that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a couple more factors that
Yeah.
you got to put into
Yeah.
play there. So, and one more question: what for the young people out there? And I know you speak to lots of young people, so you may already have a good answer to this. What would be your piece of advice becoming a professional in the music business? And obviously that's a wide question, but
No, I like it. I like it wide.
It could, there's so many different things to do.
Yeah. No, that's
and,
the thing.
And so, yeah, like just generally, what do you think are some good things for people to have in mind while they take this journey?
Yeah. So I think the main thing is this, like, be that guy on the basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
Be him, because if you are passionate, if you are driven, and if you're putting in the type of effort, right? I keep saying the word effort because
Mm-hmm.
it's a big deal, you know? Put the effort in to learn the programs. Put the effort in to navigate the business, because there are so many avenues of the business. You can definitely find a career. You just need to search it out, know it exists, right? Because I didn't know when I was a teenager that you could be an exec at a studio, that you could be working directly on the music that's in films. You can also be a session musician. You can also be, you know, there's a whole gaggle of girls I know out here that sing on films. They do dates for films. You can do dates for record. You could be touring. Yeah, I mean, there's really like kind of a limitless amount of, you know, and a lot of people who are in these positions started out on instruments. You know, the SVP of music at Universal Pictures played viola. The music supervisor who did A Star Is Born used to play violin. We used to make jokes like, oh, like, well, let's be in a quartet. What the fuck am I playing? I'll be the singer. Okay, so like, I think that like whatever it is, it comes down to like effort and then research and exploration and not fucking having a backup plan, you know? Like my backup plan was production, right? Songwriting was the goal with production as a backup plan, and now I love both equally. So it's like, make sure that you're, you know, and then that you're following, you know, that you follow your heart, you know what I mean? Because the reality is you can end up in an area of the industry that doesn't align with you pretty easily. And I think the thing is, like, I left records a long time ago for the most part because I didn't feel the schedule aligned with me. I really liked the people. I was working with Benny Blanco for a whole summer. He's he's like literally the best. If you see him on Dave, like that's literally him. He's fucking so fun and talented and funny, treats people well. It's just a joy to be in the studio with. But like, I didn't want to be in the studio that late. I just didn't want to do it, you know? And I also didn't want to be, you know, engineering in that way. Like, I didn't want to have to sit there for 8 hours and maybe work for 1 or 2 and have all this dead time waiting for artists to either get there or decide they wanted to sing or do this or do that. That wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted. And I was already working in TV film. So when I was actually recording for Kesha's album, I was already doing Alvin and the Chipmunks. So I'd be like, I can't like sit here for 6 hours, even though, but that's the pace. That's what it is.
It's part of your ADD too.
That too. Yeah. And I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
You know? So I would sometimes be like, okay, if we're not going to record it, can I like go into the other studio and like print some stems? Cause I got to get some shit out the door. And they were like, yeah, cool. But yeah, it was pretty wild. So that was fucking, how am I on that far of a tangent? I can't even like work my way back the road.
I'm glad that you got to where you are, because you know, my answer to you figuring out what to do with that 6 hours in the studio for me in my past was smoking meth. So
oh shit,
you know, that's another time we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we got to.
That helps a lot with ADD.
Good stories.
It really does.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't do it anymore, but you know, back then. You know,
yeah.
Good
old meth.
She comes around every now and then in conversation. It's just kind of a fun little, haha, but what about this? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I imagine because it's a stimulant, right?
Absolutely.
And
Well,
ADD.
it's just a high dose Adderall. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
People be putting their kids on Adderall. all the
Adderall
time. I'm
is
like,
meth.
Yeah.
Adderall is meth.
I'm like, why are you doing that?
It's
are
meth.
You sure you
It's
gotta
baby
do that?
meth.
Just
Yeah.
run them around the block a little bit and find like a good outlet for their creative energy.
Yeah.
I mean, what works for you works for you. I'm like not anti-meds, but I'm also
Yeah.
like, have you tried other shit?
Yeah.
Effort, people.
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you put the effort into figuring out what
People
might
don't like
work?
effort.
Yeah.
The general
Why?
populace does not like effort.
It's so dumb. Just
Which is if
fucking-
you do put effort in, everybody listening, young people, that will inevitably make you stand out from the vast majority,
Yeah.
because most people just aren't going to put the effort in. And so if you
100%.
can, like, you will be different from everybody else.
And also just like be cool. You
That
know what I
too.
mean?
That's
Like,
very
cool.
underrated.
And by the way, I
Don't
don't
be
mean
crazy.
like be a cool guy. I mean
No.
like
Just be normal.
fucking
Be nice.
Be chill.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and also respectful. I think respect is like so hard to come by in certain
Yeah.
demographics.
For
like,
sure,
you
for
know,
sure.
they just don't know how to do it. Like, and I'm not looking for some like weird hierarchical bullshit. I just want to like feel like the person who I bring into my space to collaborate with is respectful of what I'm bringing to the table in the same way that I'm going to be respectful of what they're bringing to the table. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's weird. Like I recently took in a new mentee. Took in. That's weird. Like a broken pigeon. That's not the situation here. She's fucking brilliant. She's a singer and songwriter and trying to get more into production. And she came to my studio and I was like, do you know how to print stems? She was like, no. I was like, this is how you do it. She was like, got it. And I did not hear from her again. She fucking printed all the stems perfectly. And she figured it out. Anytime she got caught up, she YouTubed that shit or figured it out on the Google. And I checked all her shit. She made one mistake. But one mistake the first time you ever do something with 0 calls to me.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I was like,
that's a win.
whatever you need, let's fucking do that shit. I'm gonna fucking help her master her record now. Like, you know what I mean? Just because she's that person, she put in the effort. She didn't take the easy way out. Like, now I got her back forever. You know what I mean?
for sure.
And that's all it takes. Just be a good person with good intentions and put the effort in. Boom.
Yep.
Every time in this conversation that you said you've taken in a mentee, I've heard you've taken in a manatee, and I just cannot. I can't get that out of my head, and I have an image of a manatee working on Pro Tools now.
Would I mind that? Probably not.
I think it would be awesome,
But maybe
and
smelly.
really good for the manatee
love
population.
Yeah,
manatees.
probably.
Yeah.
It's probably like I can't pronounce anything because I'm trying to get to the end of my sentence so
No,
quickly.
you said it perfectly. I hear
You
manatee,
feel
when
manatee.
you see minty.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, manatees for life.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
manatees.
they're good. They're good folks. Yeah.
So, what are you working on right now? Last. What's some stuff you'd like the people to know about and be on the lookout for, and what are you excited about that's on the current?
What's coming
deck?
out? Well, the Voidz the band is. Yeah, I think I can say that. Okay, well, let me go back. So I'm working on a new Barbie series for Mattel and Netflix. It's called Barbie. I don't actually know what it's called. It's not announced yet.
Barbie Mysteries.
Yeah, but it might not be called that, but maybe. I'm working on a Disney show that's coming out in June called Primos, which was really fun. It's Spanish and English songs in all different varieties of song.
Cool.
Working on Wednesday season 2. Just started that this week. That's going to be fun. Working on this movie with Bette Midler, Susan Sarandon, Cheryl Lee Ralph, and Megan Mullally called Fabulous 4. Did a few pre-records. We're in post right now on that film. That's real fun. Just about to start a new movie with DreamWorks and Universal, but just in the capacity of vocal producer. Really psyched on that. Am I doing something else? I feel
So
like there's
not a
one more
lot,
show.
really.
I feel like there's one more show, but I can't think of it. But it'll come to me later.
JK. That's
But
amazing.
yeah, that and like
Just
the Voidz are rolling out some
monopolizing the music
songs.
business.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, we have fun. I think that's the thing. Also, I'm also developing one artist. She's fucking amazing. Benny's working with her a little bit too.
Journey.
That's the one.
Shout out Journey.
Shout out Journey.
About to pop it on them.
Pop it on them all the way. Yeah, and then that's it. You know, just fucking hanging out. Oh, wait. No, that's not true. Let me tell you. Okay, so I'm a governor on the board of the LA chapter of the Recording Academy.
I need to renew my membership. Oops.
Hello.
Yeah.
And co-chairing the Producers and Engineers Wing Committee for LA. And that's actually like been really cool work that has nothing to do with the Grammys. You say the Recording Academy,
Sure.
you think the Grammys is like the show they put on. But the Recording Academy actually does a lot more than that. And It's a really, really cool community that I've met a lot of like forever friends in, because it is us, right? The Recording Academy is the people who are making the music, and it's not like people who are necessarily getting nominated for or winning Grammys or like doing any of that shit. It's literally a great, amazing music community, and there's all of these. It's a nonprofit, and there are all of there's advocacy, there's Music Cares, which I was talking to one a kid that I just started working with, and he was saying, when the pandemic hit, I just like got a $2,000 check from Music Cares.
I've benefited from Music Cares personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's amazing. And there's like so much to it. And I've just been really loving the community. And it's interesting because it's like, I didn't know for the first 2 years that I was serving what the fuck I was doing. Like I was just on the board, like I thought I was just there to listen to these meetings. And then I started to become active. I started being like, well, what do I want from this community? I want to get together. I want to connect with more people. And started actualizing that. And there's really like a lot of room to make the moves that you want to make within your community, within the music community, if you want to be an active participant and put forth the
effort.
Thank you.
It's all about the effort.
It's all effort. Always. You get in what you you get in. No, you get out what you put in. And that was the same with with school, you know. A lot of people that I was in school with in music school ended up doing other jobs, not being in music. Some people ended up being fucking awesome in music. And those people were hands down always the people that were clamoring to get in the studio, wanting to do more projects and putting in the effort. At the end of the day, that's like really the thing that distinguished, by the way, some great talents from, you know, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is there were some great fucking talents in my school that didn't end up going on to do anything with music.
It only gets you, talent only gets you so far.
Yeah, the discipline is the rest of it. The most
There's a lot of really, really influential people that weren't the most quote unquote naturally talented people, but they put that effort in, they apply themselves, and that's really where the magic is. I sent this podcast to Brennan the other day. I was like, you're gonna love this. My girl sent it to me on that Call Her Daddy podcast. You know, they had RuPaul on, and it was so good. And RuPaul was basically saying kind of that idea. It's like, life is like, what do you want me to be? And however you sort of are and how you treat it, it's like, that's what do you say is like, you're a witch. You can turn
conjure
this, like,
that shit.
Yeah.
No, but that's totally true. And it's like really actually, you know, I feel like what it is this like abundance mentality. It's like whatever you fucking want to be happening is already happening. You just have to align yourself with that shit. Like, it's literally happening right in front of you. So figure out what it is that you want to align with truly. I think there's like a lot of people are not honest with themselves. They have these like weird narratives.
I suffer from that.
And if you truly align with what you want and then do the little effort part, you can just jump into that stream. It's already going. You know what I mean? So I think it's just like, you know, obviously there's stuff to overcome, right? Like mental health shit, addiction shit, like whatever the fuck is shit you need to overcome. That's like part of the journey too. But like, who hasn't struggled with something?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The struggle is inevitable.
Yeah.
Like even if you do apply yourself, like it's gonna be difficult times.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Banger.
Kelly.
Banger.
Love
Just
Kelly.
Banger.
What's that thing about Kelly singing everybody's song better than they sang it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She like has a television show just to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her voice is so crazy.
She's amazing.
She's so good.
Yeah.
Such a wholesome, just nice person,
She's
it
what I
seems
love.
like too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love her.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Cool.
Well, fuck.
Alana.
This is fun.
Yeah.
we're grateful for you.
I went over the hour though.
No, it's okay.
Who cares?
Who cares?
We got some gems that
Yeah.
people need to
Hear.
know. Yeah.
For some reason, I
They'd
was
be
going to say
so
that people
lucky.
need to smell. I don't know why I was thinking people need to smell them, but yeah.
Podcast. I've always wondered when smell-o-vision
It'll
is
come.
going to be
It'll
like
come
a thing.
soon. Yeah.
I've always wondered that.
It's,
It's
going to be
coming.
a little gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be what's the word?
Who's sweating?
AI's gonna figure it out. I'm sweating right
sweating.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sweating. It's hot in here.
Yeah.
It is hot.
We gotta turn the
We're
AC
getting
on.
that time of year.
Yeah.
Alana,
Sweet.
you're a legend.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. Be on the lookout, everybody. Ben and Bren Show. Thank you for listening.
Peace out.
We love you.
Bye.
Stuff you know and stuff you don't. It's the Ben and Bren Show.